On today's show, the San Diego Padres and their fan base are looking to improve as we inch closer and closer to the trade deadline. But even if they want to, can they? Do they even have the prospect depth to pull it off? I'm being joined by my guy, Aram Leighton, to talk about the rest of the Padres farm system and its depth and whether or not they could do such a thing. So let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Wednesday, July the 2nd. As always, I'm your host with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes, and I've been covering this team for not just this podcast for almost 6 years now, though, right? But also some other outlets, including justbaseball.com, chief among them. Today's episode, guys, is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Today's show, guys, we're going to be talking about the farm system depth of the Padres because I don't know if people have been paying attention, but the Padres got rained out. So I had to hit up the Avengers line, send in the enforcements. And I said, we've been talking about this for a while. My guy, Aram Leighton, he was on the show a couple weeks ago. You may know him from the Call Up, a Just Baseball podcast. And he's the co-founder of Just Baseball, prospect guru extraordinaire. Aram, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday afternoon?
I'm doing well. I'm excited because we're now officially in the window where it actually makes sense to talk about the trade deadline, where people are always so eager, which I get it. It's so much fun, but people are so eager. We're doing mailbags on the Just Baseball show in like May or honestly, like sometimes late April, and we're already getting like trade deadline or trade questions. I'm like, well, we don't even know who's going to buy and sell. We're still finding that out. Like teams take it to the wire with the expanded playoffs now, but one guy that doesn't is AJ Preller. So I think it's a little bit easier to have the conversation a little bit earlier. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and look, this is a team that is still a good team, and for every dayer who's been listening to the show, you know how I feel about the team at this point. But there is a giant question of being like, well, to what degree are they going to go for it? And I think that's why I want to have you on, especially right now, because with their spiral, I guess a lot more people are starting to say, well, should they trade this farm? Should they just hang tight? And I think the even more interesting question is, well, do they even have anything? Because while it is fun to talk about trades, it is also really worth mentioning that a lot of teams think you just kind of procure. The Yankees fans are masters of this, of course, right? They're like, well, let's get Corbin Carroll. Right. You know what I mean? Like those type of things. But do you even have the prospect depth to be able to do that? And I think that has always been a question for the Padres, for better or worse. Right. And let's get into it, man. Last time I talked with Aram, you guys could go check out that episode from a couple weeks ago where we focused on Ethan Salas and Leo Devries. We're not going to do that. They're top level prospects. Aram had him as number 3 in all of baseball. Salas, I believe, around the 70 range. I'm forgetting right now. And then we're going to talk about now the other guys, the guys who didn't make the top 100, right? Let's get into it, man. So the number 3 prospect, let's start with him, actually. I told you we were actually going to start with Kash Mayfield, but I lied. Let's start first with Cobb Hightower, who is your 3rd prospect right after Ethan Salas, who is a little bit of a riser. I think you have him ranked a little bit higher on your list than MLB.com does. So what can you tell us about Cobb? Is he just an exciting little depth piece, or is this a guy who you actually think could be like a real asset?
He's a hitter. I know it hasn't been the best start to his season given and really pro career because he started the year on the IL and I think he's been shaken off the rust, hit a walk-off home run yesterday, which was actually his first home run as a pro. The thing with him though is he really created a lot of buzz and helium with the way that he performed in the Bridge League. And I don't know if I've talked to you about this, but I think you'd find this spectacle very funny. Basically, MLB teams all agreed to have this like Bridge League after the draft, which makes a lot of sense in theory, right? Don't send your players to an affiliate for like the last month of the season, and especially a high school kid who just had his there's a lot of stress that goes into that, and like limited reps doesn't make sense. Why not have a little league for all the draft guys at the complex and have them just play each other from other teams? And then maybe a few other guys that you want reps for. But they didn't really tell anybody about that. Like no one really knew about the Bridge League. It was like this secret thing essentially. And now like my goal this year after the draft is going to be to like find out the Bridge League schedule so I can go actually catch these games. but scouts were able to get out there. And of course, buzz is created. And a lot of the guys that created that buzz in the Bridge League last year are off to phenomenal starts this year, especially the high school guys, because you didn't get to see a lot of those guys, especially playing against top-end competition. Cobb was one of them, but because of the injury going into this year, I think it stifled some of that momentum. But I still really do like what he has going on in the batter's box. He's patient. He makes a ton of contact. And I think both of those things are ultimately going to translate into above average production for him. And it's not like he's swinging a wet noodle either. Like there's average exit velocities there. And I think he's still just learning how to get the ball in the air more, getting more comfortable, all that good stuff. And they're playing him every day at shortstop, though I think he's probably more of this like versatile utility infielder. I think there's a guy that could absolutely be an everyday big leaguer and is a solid piece. Unfortunately, from the trade perspective, though, it's not like you'd be selling high, but I do think a lot of teams are still very high on him. And I don't think you take a 22-game sample as any reason to, be skeptical on what he could be given the helium that he had going into the draft and shortly after.
And look, it's also, I didn't mention this, and I like talking, I just like doing this as a preface every time we talk about trades. It's also really worth noting that MLB teams don't think the same way as us, right? They don't look at MLB.com top 100 prospects and say, whoa. We can't trade that guy. He's our number 3 prospect. So it is possible that something crazy happens and Luis Robert gets traded for Boston Bateman and, some reliever, right? Like that's totally possible, but it is worth, I think, bringing up that it just seems like this is one of those solid players that you get that's really nice to have in a farm system to just even things out a little bit. You just kind of know what you're going to get. And I like that. I always like having a player like that. Whether or not he develops into something great, who knows? But hey, Jay Cronenworth was a guy who was kind of viewed the same way.
Yep.
He was a dude who just a hitter, fine player, right? And then he came up and he's a pretty good major league player. So like that could happen. Ty France, who, was a scourge against the Padres for a little bit. Then he fell out of luck for a little bit. Then he came back. So he's had a weird career. But yeah, I think that these guys absolutely have value. But I think that when it comes to the bigger ones for the Padres specifically, is their first round pick from last year, their first rounder, Mr. Kash Mayfield. And we're going to talk about Kash Mayfield and whether or not there should be reason for concern if he's just getting hyped because he's a Padres pitching prospect and it's the only one they have, or is it that he really is something special, guys? We're going to talk about that in a minute, but first, a word from one of our sponsors. And that sponsor, my friends, is our good friends over at Supply House, which gets you the supplies from all the skilled trades. Whether you're plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, whatever it is, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, don't worry, you're not going to call up and get robocalls or anything like that. You can talk with a real person, expert, industry-leading service every time. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it is your turn, my dear Locked On Padres listeners. And where can you do that? You can join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. And we're not done. No, I'm also giving you a promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com, everybody. Go and check it out. And just like that, we are back here on the Locked On Padres call up crossover extravaganza with my old buddy Aram Leighton. We're talking about the Padres farm system depth. Let's waste no time. Let's get into Kash Mayfield. Simple as this. From my perspective, Padres traded a whole lot of pitching prospects. Your boy, Robbie Snelling. They traded Dylan Lesko. They traded a lot of these guys. So you're like, well, they don't really have a lot of pitching prospects left. And they drafted Kash Mayfield in the first round. Classic Padres pick, high upside sort of guy. But from what I've seen, seems to be a little bit of velocity problems. Problems as in, I don't know if I want to say problems as much as I want to say not as impressive. That's not the standout. We're not freaking out and saying, whoa, this is Skeens. This is Aroldis Chapman type of stuff, right? What can you tell us about Kash Mayfield?
And it's definitely something to monitor. It's something I was a little bit surprised. I wasn't expecting him to even be in the mid 90s. I thought maybe 91, 93. But the fastball has been closer to that 89 to 91. The thing with Mayfield, though, is aside from his last outing where, and I think they just pulled him because, one, he's been dealing with a little bit of shoulder discomfort. So I think once you have an inning, a lot of organizations will look at it, especially with their prize prospects, of like, hey, if you're throwing more than 30 pitches in an inning, let's just call it today. We'll pull you, and we'll go get him in 5 days. It's fine. And that's exactly what happened last time out. But in the 5 starts, or 5 appearances, I should say, prior to that, he had been really effective in low A, 28 strikeouts, just 2 walks. And I think that's the encouraging part, because when you look at a Kash Mayfield, you want more velocity because that can push that ceiling higher to what could be that middle rotation type of arm. But he looks like a guy that could absolutely slot into the back of a rotation if he can hold that velocity at 91, 92, because he's funky. He has a really good changeup, and that slider already looks like a decent third pitch. So you have 3 pitches for a strike with some deception to that delivery and a 6'3", 200 frame. There's plenty to like there. But with the shoulder discomfort he's dealt with this year, with the velo being maybe a tick or so lower than we were expecting, it hasn't been necessarily a rocket ship, right? And they've been very careful with him. It's been, since he's come back from that discomfort, it's been mostly 2-3 inning spurts. He has dominated in those 2-3 inning spurts aside from that last outing, but that's something I want to see. Like, hey, well, when you go to 4, 5, 6 innings, where does that velocity end up sitting at? First time out this year, or first 2 starts, he was more in that 92 average. Now it's more in that 90 flat. So I think he's adjusting to the workload. I think there's something obviously with the shoulder that they want to just make sure is all good. But the ability is there, no doubt about it. He has the talent to be a big league starter. But I do think if Preller has the opportunity here, this does seem like the kind of guy where it's like, okay, if he doesn't knock your socks off right out of the gate, that might be that. I don't think there's anything that's going to be stopping Preller from moving him for a legitimate piece, right? You're not going to move him just to move him, but I think he still carries plenty of value. I think teams would be interested in him, but it has been kind of this slow exit, out of the gate so far.
Yeah, and I feel like that's been a little bit rare lately with Padres first round picks. Very quietly, I know no one in the lamestream media wants to give them credit, but a lot of the players that they've been taking early first round have kind of rocketed for, whether that be because they just promoted them or it's like, oh God. I mean, I know that it turned out a little bit poorly, but Robert Hassel was a guy that they overdrafted a little bit. CJ Abrams and obviously Jackson Merrill, that these guys have turned out. So I think that there's a little bit of that, like, oh, wait, this isn't one of those guys who immediately just somehow became a top level prospect. Seems like he's a little bit more of a project than not, which tells me he's absolutely on the trade block. Already. Exactly. He was placed on the trade block 3 weeks ago. That's what happens there.
Which is like to be expected a lot of times with prep lefties. Like that's how it goes. And but yeah, I think we have gotten used to the type of prospect that they target is generally a guy that's going to have a skill set that you can maybe push a little bit more aggressively. What's funny is I would have thought Boston Bateman, who we'll get to, was a little bit more of the project, and he is in some ways, but that guy's going 5 innings every time out and shoving, absolutely shoving in low A. So it just also shows you how, at the end of the day, amateur scouting is so impossible, and it's so fluid, and things change so quickly.
Absolutely. The hit movie Moneyball taught us that. Let me ask you about, before we kind of just get into the last players to watch out for, and maybe people haven't heard of, my guy Tyson Neighbors, ranked number 15 on MLB.com. If anybody's curious for Padres prospects, and is he top 15 on yours? I think he is, right?
Yeah,
he made it, right?
I'm almost positive because
just heads up, the article slanted to the left, like the text isn't in the middle with the ads. Just so you know, so it's a little bit, yeah.
He's 15 for us as well.
Okay, he's 15 for you guys. All right, yeah, now I see it. Friend of the show, so I got to ask about him. Had him on before the season started. My immediate reaction is the guy is just a gamer. In terms of that respect, it just seems like he loves to attack, loves to compete, has a thrill about him that I love. What can you tell us about our guy Tyson?
That's a guy that you can fast track, and I think the Padres do a phenomenal job of identifying relief prospects and guys that you can push quickly. It's a little bit easier, of course, to identify those types, but still, if you have a guaranteed big league reliever that you can grab any round outside of the second, really, and even in the second, I think if you think he could be really, really high impact, high leverage, you could almost justify it. But a lot of times, I mean, we looked at David Morgan, right, who's a non-drafted free agent who was hitting in NAIA ball, and he looks like a relief piece for them. Like, they've done a phenomenal job with that. And Bradley Rodriguez, I love what he's doing, and that's another guy that, I mean, was very overlooked. But Neighbors, it is a really good fastball. It's 95, but with elite characteristics. So it's going to have that perceived ride and really dominate at the top of the zone. And then off of that, he's just got this disgusting slider that is more of that gyro slider. So it dives downward. So you have this tunneling nightmare where it's like fastball riding. So hitters trying to get ready for the top. And then you have this slider that looks just like it out of his hand. And then it, boom, drops right below it. So he's been overwhelming hitters that way. And what I love about that is it actually almost is more effective against lefties than righties. And you think fastball, slider, reliever, usually those are going to be guys that are better right on right. If anything, he actually needs to get a little bit more comfortable doing the same to righties, which is a lot easier. But lefties are hitting 0.96 against him this year. They're 5 for 52. So I love that. You'll make a little tweak here or there to get righties out a little bit more consistently. It's not like they're crushing either. They're hitting 250, but with a 740 OPS. This is a really good relief prospect that I think when we're going to talk about deadline stuff and what they may do, I don't think you can move one of your high impact arms because you imagine Robert Suarez might be gone, but maybe a David Morgan or somebody else like to package into a deal because they have so much control. A rebuilding team would still have some interest in that. Maybe you could justify that knowing that a Tyson Neighbors is on the way and some other guys in this farm system that can really throw in one inning spurts.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about that and maybe just a couple more prospects to keep an eye on in just a second, guys. This has been a blast, but one more word from one more of our sponsors. And that sponsor, Aram takes a very funny breath during the middle of that. I don't know why that got me. That is Monarch Money, folks. Because if you ever wish you've been saving your money and you're just like, I wish this could be easier. Well, guess what? Monarch Money can help you out. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And it's more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, folks. You can track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. And it also gives you surprising insights. Mine wasn't very surprising. Spend too much on takeout and subscriptions, but they still let you know and let you know which ones you can save on. They have different insights all the time. And if you share finance with someone like a partner or whatever, Monarch can help you guys merge those accounts, do all that work for you, and just make everything easier. All right. It's not that deep. All right, guys. So go check it out. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Go on and check that thing out. And we are back, everybody, just like that, here, thriving and vibing into the final segment of this here show. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter /X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO. You can follow Aram on Twitter /X and Blue Sky at Aram Leighton 8 and just baseball. Type it in. It's in his bio, blah, 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 blah. You'll find all that stuff. All right, let's get to it, man. Look, this farm system, I feel like it's no secret that for a long time, it's not necessarily been the most exciting farm system in the world. But I will say that there are teams that have worse farm systems and there are teams that have worse scouts. So knowing that, I mean, that's why it makes always the Padres such an interesting team at the deadline. What do you think they should do, though? I want to ask you just what should they do? Not even necessarily a certain player, but like, what's your vibe on this Padres team and whether or not they should be going for it, taking into account as well their farm system assets?
Well, I think it's a great question because I think there's layers to it, right? Where I don't think it makes sense to go out and get a rental, right? Like to trade a Robbie Snelling type, and I know he was struggling at the time. I'm not trying to really knock the deal. And I think a big reason why Snelling is actually having success is just the change of scenery and getting with and the Marlins are just trying some different things. And not to say that one organization's better at developing than the other. It's just sometimes you hit a snag and you need a reset and a change of scenery and some other minds to work with. And that's really helped Robbie Snelling. But the point being, I wouldn't trade decent prospects for a rental. I'd be looking for, maybe guys with control if I'm going to move somebody more impactful. But I also, I don't think I would subscribe to the belief of, oh, well, this team isn't a force. It's a really good team, but this team isn't dominating. We shouldn't add at all. We shouldn't deplete the farm system any further. That's where I'm confident that AJ Preller can reload. You got this Victor Figueroa kid who was playing JUCO ball. And I understand he's still just in low A, but no one knew who he was. He had zero attention being thrown his way, and he has an 1150 OPS this year. That's a guy that now teams could have some interest in as a complimentary piece in a deal. The point being, you can reload on the back end of the farm. I have a lot of confidence in the Padres being able to improve that side of things. So I think that the approach is buying with control. And I know that can be hard because that might make the price even steeper, but I think you're not trying to go get an all-star player. I think you're just trying to lengthen the lineup a little bit, fill the obvious gaps, and get a solid player with some control that helps you beyond this year. I ultimately think that makes the most sense for them. And, those options may not be plentiful, but I do think there's enough opportunities there to add a player that can come with even just one more year after this year. So you're not putting all your eggs in that basket. I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I could be getting this wrong, but I think that on the Just Baseball show, you also brought up the trading of relievers. It doesn't even have necessarily to be prospects, but my thing, and I would also go even further and say, would you trade Jason Adam or Jeremiah Estrada? If it meant getting a high impact player. And I think that what we talked about with Morgan, I still have at least a little bit of interest in Sean Reynolds. And then you have Tyson Neighbors. You got some of these other guys. I think it's an idea that shouldn't be dismissed. I mean, Jason Adams has been very quietly one of the most clutch, wins. What's that called? Whip. Give me a minute. Win probability added.
Win probability added.
Yeah, there we go. I was close. I was close. He's been amazing in most situations they've added, and he's got some years of control left. So is that a guy that you say, you know what, man, pitchers are volatile, but with Suarez possibly being on the down, you still got to measure it. But I'm I'm not opposed to anything. One day I'm going to reshare my clip when I'm in a bad mood of me saying that the Padres probably should trade for Juan Soto, just so I could get free engagement on that. But it does remind me of this same thing, which is why I'm against really going for it. They keep doing it, right? And some of it has been successful. And I really don't think people understand that, the 2022 team, I don't think they do the Soto trade if Tatis gets popped. I just don't. I really don't think that they make that move. I think they're oh my God. All right, I think we got to spend in the offseason. Let's just go get Brandon Drury and Josh Bell. I think that's what they do. I think they just leave it at those guys. But for this team, it is the age-old question. Do you want to be giving up Salas and Devries for Jarren Duran? And my thing is no. My thing is no. I just think that both those guys could be really good. And everybody seems to have caught on the Devries thing. And Salas, I don't understand this idea of complaining. Padres fans, especially Reddit, radio shows, whatever. I'm not going to name names. I love those guys. But I don't understand this idea of complaining about watching Elias Diaz and Martin Maldonado catch for you and then be so immediate, oh, they were wrong about Ethan Salas. It's well, it's been a year, guys. I want to give it a second. I'm trying not to go on a rant here, but he's a freaking catcher, and he was 12 years old when they called him up. Yeah, it's
he's
probably
already
not going to look amazing. And he's already the lead defensively. So my thing is let's try something new. How about you go out and get Taylor Ward? I don't know, some guy who I'm actually all for going for someone who's being bad. I don't care. I'd rather left field and catcher have been such a disaster for this team that I think the potential of hitting on a 101 WRC plus guy, the difference I think will be so drastic for this team that you just have a professional hitter who knows how to hit the ball, play a little bit of defense. That would be great instead of taking this approach of, oh, I want guys that don't strike out a lot. Well, I don't care. All right. Like, because that's not helping right now. And the Padres are struggling.
Well, and that's the thing that I think gets overlooked quite often is, oh, he's only a 100 WRC plus guy. He's not going to move the needle for us. Well, yeah, he is. If you're not getting anything close to that production wise from the corner outfield, and that's where I look at, and I think we mentioned it in the past, but it really does feel like is as good of a partnership here as possible. The Marlins again, right? Like we know that phone line works, but Jesus Sanchez is exactly what you described. He's an league average, maybe slightly above hitter. When he gets hot, though, he goes on these tears. The raw power is crazy. He's going to play fine enough in a corner. It's not going to be Gavin Sheets, so you can move him back to the DH spot. And shit, they could package Nick Fortes if they wanted to as well. And he's not the best in the world either, but he is an above replacement level catcher. And so if they're just sick of the Maldonado thing, I don't know if
do you want Campuzano? Do you want Campuzano? I just want him. I want him to be in another place now. At this point,
yeah,
he's the Babe Ruth of AAA,
but probably not for the Marlins, given all the upper level catchers they have right now. But
sure.
But that's a perfect example. You're not going to have to give up anything crazy. A couple random arms, I think, would make it work. And Jesus Sanchez has multiple years of control. Fortes has multiple years of control. And so I think it sets you up now and later. And again, it doesn't even have to be something that's permanent. If you decide, hey, that's not a big enough impact player, you could always move him again next year if you wanted to, and then go get a better player. But in the meantime, your fill is way higher. Like your floor is brought up because at least you have a guy that's proven to be around a league average hitter. And I think Sanchez has done a lot of things actually better this year than he has done in years past. So I think that's a guy that makes a lot of sense for them that you wouldn't need to tap into the top of that farm system. I think you'd have to give up a couple, maybe one or two top 15 guys, but I don't think anybody in the top 5. So I think that's worth it in a lot of ways. Maybe in Adolis Garcia.
Yeah, exactly.
That's another one where I like, to your point, I like the idea of taking a shot on a guy who maybe isn't playing at the peak of his powers, because that's how you acquire somebody that isn't going
that's how
to
the Braves won the title,
break the bank, right? And guess what? He's under control for another year after this one. So it's also another one of those where it's not all in on this year. And I could see the Rangers potentially being willing to move off of an Adolis.
Let's buy low on someone. Hey, look, Austin Hayes was a guy that was interesting at the trade deadline for Baltimore. Right. And did he do amazing when he was initially traded last year? No, he finished the year with a 97 WRC plus. He's got a 137 this year. I just think that it's really important to remember that the Padres have their difference makers. The only thing you can do is just hope that they do that, right? Like Tatis has been a little bit down this year. Jackson Merrill a tiny bit down this year. Machado's been great, but you get my point. Hopefully Bogarts gets back. You have the big time players already. So just take a shot, man. Like, what do you have to lose? And by the way, it's not the end of the world. I've been hearing that the Padres are in win now mode since 2020, and they're still in win now mode. That, by the way, doesn't make sense. Just to tell you guys, like, you can't be win now for 5 years. So you have time, more time than I think people realize, especially given some of your star players' youth. And my thing is, you don't know what's going to happen. Nobody really knew for sure that Juan Soto was going to be at the trade deadline. Not really. Like a year before. That wasn't really a discussion. Things appear, like procure themselves. So for me, I'm against it, but we'll see. We'll see, because I think AJ Preller doesn't care, and I think he becomes a full-fledged nihilist when it comes to the trade deadline. So we'll see then, though, guys. But I want you guys to go see Locked On Padres every day of the week. Go check out Locked On MLB as well for all of your general coverage. And then, of course, go check out the call-up with Aram Leighton. Big prospect breakdowns. Go listen. He talks more about Boston Bateman and some of the Humberto Cruz. All these guys, he gives a bigger breakdown on the article format and the audio format. But Aram, it has been a pleasure, as always. Any final words for the good people?
I was sorry. I'm mesmerized by the ads issue right now. That's also why I took that big breath. I was not happy about seeing the website bug out with ads right now. That's disappointing. Check out justbaseball.com when the ads are not disrupting the articles. I'm sorry about that. But also the Call Up podcast. We're actually previewing the Futures game rosters right now. So I'm very
Awesome.
pumped about that. That's been really fun. We'll be out there covering that. And of course, the Just Baseball show, where we are keeping you up to date with everything going on in the baseball world 4 days a week. But thank you so much for having me on, man. Always a blast.
Absolutely. And until tomorrow, when we recap 2 games with a special guest from CBS, guys, and until that next time, stay safe. And of course, stay faithful. My Friday Faithful homies. Take care.